Doctor Who escape this time? Buy Wool's new shape Skyray with double flavors of raspberry and orange. And you get a free color picture card, one of a series showing Doctor Who and the Space Raiders battling with Daleks. Free when you buy Wool's new shape Skyray. Only 6 months.
Having weathered the change of recasting the Doctor, a second season with Patrick Troughton followed. After a time of transition for the show under Innes Lloyd, Season 5 was when Doctor Who was sedimented as a scary Monster of the Week series, with this season being dubbed the Monster Season. Much darker and frightening than the family-friendly Hartnell era.
They're just a little bit more frightening than last time. So I want to warn you that if your mummy and daddy are scared, you just get them to hold your hand.
This was really when the shape of the show in future was made. While it never got the same heights as the peak of the Hartnell era, this season continued the solid ratings trend of Season 4 of between 6 and 8.5 million viewers, sitting around an average of 60th in the weekly charts. With Lloyd having made his impact on the show, script editor Peter Bryant moved up to take the producer role midway through the season. Though to try his capability as producer, he first had to go at the season opener, meaning that it's the only serial script edited by Victor Pemberton. Kit Pedler and Jerry Davies' Return of the Cybermen in Tomb of the Cybermen. We open with the TARDIS on Skaro where it was left at the end of Evil of the Daleks, the interior being oddly shot on film, giving a very open-spaced feeling to it. It also sounds rather echoey. This is the first time Victoria enters the TARDIS as the naive Victorian child begins her adventures. There is a sense of magic here. Also, we learn how old the Doctor is.
Well, if we count in Earth terms, I suppose I must be about 400... Yes, about 450 years old.
We're then taken to the planet Telos, where an expedition uncovers the tomb of the Cybermen. Almost like something from Egyptologists uncovering the tombs of ancient pharaohs, they blast their way in and one person falls for a booby trap in their harsh attitude to what they're uncovering. They also have a black mute strongman, an unfortunate stereotype that isn't the only time it appears in Doctor Who.
He'll snap your arm like a twig, mister. Tony don't talk much, but he's strong.
With a similar character of Kemmel in the previous serial. This wasn't intentional, however. The character was written as deaf and his being mute just carried over. The character has depth, however, being a slave to the crafty Captain, played by Peter Bryant's wife. With the help of the Doctor, they explore the tomb, and one is killed by a weapons testing.
Oh, Jimmy, don't touch that control!
Already have.
There's a hilarious moment where the Doctor and Jamie accidentally hold hands instead of Victoria's. It was completely unplanned, and they did it knowing that a retake wouldn't be possible. Victoria's intrepidation is very well handled in this story, with the Doctor giving her a heartfelt speech to get over her father's death.
You miss him very much, don't you?
It's only when I close my eyes, I can still see him standing there.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting thing. Nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.
It's only a matter of time before they find the Cybermen's ice tomb against the Doctor's warnings and awake them. This is an iconic sequence of the ice disappearing and the Cybermen cutting themselves out of their pods, all to the iconic March of the Cybermen tune, even if they do struggle to get down the ladder in their costumes. Then a door opens and out comes the Cyber Controller with a definitely not phallic head that definitely lights up. He gives this chilling line to the explorers.
You belong to us. You shall be like us.
The rest of the story is a classic case of power-hungry humans thinking they can ally with the Cybermen to get what they want, and the Cybermen being trapped in the basement. We're introduced to the Cybermats, which really aren't that threatening. Cyberman gets half converted and the bad guys get killed by the Cybermen. The Cybermen are sent back to their tombs, leaving just the Cyber Controller, who gets thrown around by Cyberman, definitely not a dummy, and then Cyberman sacrifices himself to seal the tomb. Finally speaking in an act of defiance, he has broken his chains.
Never pass Cyberman. The door is closed.
The Cybermen are sealed away, except for one Cybermat. This is an iconic story and for many years in the fan wisdom was regarded as one of the greatest of all time. It was seen as a lost classic that people could only imagine what the Cybermen coming out of their tombs would look like. Then in 1991, it was found in its entirety in Hong Kong. Its VHS release in 1992 outsold The Silence of the Lambs on opening week, as fans hurried home to see this episode they had longed for, and some were disappointed. The effects weren't up to how they looked in their heads and in stills, and it could never live up to the legendary expectations. But it is still a great story and one of my personal all-time favourites. That's not the last time you'll hear this in this video. And from the snowy ice tombs of Telos, we go to the snowy mountains of the Himalayas. Okay, the Himalayas may look more like North Wales. Within this Lloyd back to producing, this story by Marvin Hainsman and Henry Lincoln is set in a Tibetan monastery that is under attack by Yetis. Lincoln, by the way, was well into history and would go on to present history documentaries. He would later write The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, which inspired the Da Vinci Code. While it has white actors as Tibetans, it gives a lot of respect to Buddhism and probably introduced a lot of people to the name Padmasambhava. I hope I say that right. They soon discover the Yetis aren't Yetis, but are in fact robots controlled by a great intelligence, who is playing both sides as he has taken over the body of Padmasambhava during meditation, and has been running the monastery and controlling the robots with these control spheres with their eerie chirp. Much of the story is then padding, here come the Yetis again type stuff, and Victoria getting possessed. It's just this run around until the final episode where we have this big sequence with the destruction of the Great Intelligence, masterfully voiced by Wolf Morris, but we can't see it. However, the animation does it justice with this skeletal version of Padmasambhava doing more than the makeup ever could. They destroy the Great Intelligence's machine or capsule or whatever and save the day. The animation on this one isn't the best. The scenery is too open and the character positions are too flat. The design's alright, but it was a step down from other animations. However, when viewed in the 4:3 black and white format, the spacing is less wide and things blend together better. I get the sense that this is how it was designed to be viewed because it's just so much better. There is one surviving episode. Episode 2 was returned from Ian Levine's private collection in 1982. The HD film inserts also exist for episode 2, making it actually one of the most well preserved of the 60s, even though only seconds survived of the rest of the serial. An interesting note is the character of the explorer Professor Travers, who is hunting for the real Yeti, is played by Jack Watling, Deborah Watling's father. There's many anecdotes about her own father teaming with Troughton and Hines to prank her, scaring her with loud noises or hiding from her when they all had a brandy to keep warm.
And in this church hall we got this big tin trunk full of props and she was staring into space and we got this big, and we just dropped it behind her. She leapt. Daddy, you swine, I'm your daughter, you know.
They actually ganged up against me. And there's nobody on my side. And I thought, how can I get them back? And I never quite did.
But after the snowy Himalayas, it was now on to the snowy future. Set in the far future where climate change has frozen the world and the ice caps are spreading. Yes, that's what they used to think climate change would do. At the forefront, an ionizer built into an old country house blasts the ice sheet to try and stop it advancing. However, in their ice melting, they uncover an ancient warrior. At first they think it's a Viking and dub it an ice warrior, but when it thaws and resurrects, it's clear it's a Martian reptile. It goes back to its crashed ship and awakes its fellow ice warriors. The ionizer and the ship engines are damaging each other, and in the end the ionizer destroys the Martian ship and kills all the ice warriors. Again, another story filling for time. Victoria is captured and does a lot of screaming. Jamie meets a Scottish scavenger called Storr, who pretty much is just out to spite everyone. Meanwhile, the Doctor is back and forth between the Ice Warriors and the base leader Clent, played by Peter Barkworth, with an inconsistent limp, trying to negotiate. But the stubborn Ice Warriors and hard-up leader won't hear it. It's a rather iconic story with all the ice caves and the 60s sci-fi designs. The Ice Warriors too are iconic with their hissing breaths, slow lumbering movements, their Lego hands and their laser that creates this simple but quite chilling effect. In their warrior armour that seems organic, these are very alien Martian beings. Even though one of the heads came out a bit too big so they just acted like this was a foot soldier, they are iconic villains, and Brian Hales' creation would appear again a few times over the years. But the lesson of this story is that the central computer isn't as efficient as a good old human. Not being as fast as the Doctor and breaking down when given an impossible problem, this is a very Luddite story.
Oh no, it's near enough correct. Give or take a second. Rubbish. Check it on your precious computer then.
Even still, it's a more than solid 6 episodes. In this case, it is only missing 2 episodes, as 4 were found in the villa's house in 1988. Its 2 missing episodes were animated in 2013, back when they were only done in black and white, and, while very bare basic, does the job of filling the gap. Anyway, after 3 serials in snowy settings, the TARDIS would next find itself on the coast of Australia.
Get below fast, both of you! What's the matter? Move!
I don't think I like the look of this. Let's go.
What?
Come on, run. Don't argue. Run. Come on. Come on.
The TARDIS lands on the beach where the Doctor goes swimming. This fun sequence leaning into Troughton's lighter side as he runs around, but soon it's cut short and they get shot at. Along comes an action sequence with guns and hovercraft and helicopters ending in an explosion.
Who are these men? Why are they so determined to kill us?
Kill you. They hate you.
Me?
Directed by future producer Barry Letts and written by David Whittaker, this story doesn't feature any monsters, but is instead a high-stakes spy adventure akin to the Bond films of the time. Its lack of Monster of the Week scares may have not got it a great reputation, and its AI scores were not that great. But since its finding in 2013, it has skyrocketed in fan estimations and is now considered an all-time great. The Doctor discovers that he is identical to the global dictator Salamander, and his former ally turned enemy Niles Kent hatches a plan to overturn the regime with the Doctor's help. It then becomes a globe-trotting adventure with Jamie infiltrating Salamander's guard and Victoria working as a cook, all while the tension of whether the Doctor will be found out. Troughton really shows off his acting ability in this dual role, becoming the stern authoritarian with a threatening menace around him, a psychopathic killer who will do anything to hold on to power. After a series of action sequences, we discover that Salamander has been engineering natural disasters to keep in power, using a group of people he's trapped underground, telling them outside is a nuclear wasteland. Of course, it's only a matter of time before all the corruption is revealed to Salamander's right-hand man.
Why do you have so many enemies?
Personal guard.
Your own food taster.
And why destroy the one man the people trusted, Alexandra Dennis?
Aye.
You mean destroy?
One of your men shot him.
And his slaves discover the truth and rebel.
You've lied to us, haven't you?
In the end, Salamander flaunts into the TARDIS pretending to be the Doctor. They fight, giving us some great split screen.
And now I'm going to kill you.
And eventually is thrown out into the time vortex. It's very fortunate this story got rediscovered because its visuals and its design work and action sequences are great and make this a very entertaining and distinct story. While it wasn't thought of much before, the only surviving episode 3 doesn't have much going on, and the soundtrack would miss the visuals of what's happening. It's deserving of its reappraisal and makes you question what other serials could get a similar treatment. But after the depths of Salamander's lair, it's now to the depths of the underground, in a story that's always been considered one of the greatest. After being attacked by a webbing in space, the TARDIS team finds themselves in the... Hey, that's a very groovy costume Victoria's wearing. In the London Underground. They're locked in and outside is a body covered in webs. This is an eerie opening. A sequel to the Abominable Snowmen, Hazeman and Lincoln were on fire producing 2 6-episode scripts for the one season. Set 40 years after the Abominable Snowmen, putting it in 1978, one of the Yeti robots in the museum has got one of the control spheres back in it, and Professor Travers isn't being taken seriously in this quite eerie opening that feels like a scene out of a classic horror film. The Great Intelligence has taken over the London Underground, and with its Yeti robots is spreading this big fungus. The London Underground wouldn't let them film, so they had to construct these amazing underground sets that were so impressive that Transport for London tried to sue them for trespassing, and frankly you can see why. The army has been sent to stop the Yetis, but their attempts are futile. Only a small group survives, waiting for reinforcements that can't get to them. The whole thing is in these small, dark, claustrophobic sets that really gives credit to the base under siege cliché, and this is one of the best examples of it. Over the course of the 6 episodes, men are slowly lost or captured or hypnotised, and there's just this sense of defeat. Even the Doctor is missing in episode 2, believed to have been killed by one of the attempts to blow up the station, or because Patrick Troughton was on holiday. However, the Yetis were able to cover the explosives with webbing that absorbs the blast. This was Derek Sherman's first go at script editor, with Peter Bryant now fully taken over as producer. And while they're not there yet, he essentially introduces what he was most known for, UNIT. While it wouldn't be formed until the invasion of next year, it has all the hallmarks, with us being introduced to the Brigadier, played by Nicholas Courtney for the first time in episode 3. The Brigadier would go on to become one of the most prolific companions, serving with almost every classic series Doctor. A stern military man who sometimes struggles to believe the Doctor, often following his instructions but sometimes going stark against. His influence on the show would be legendary. And here he is, for the first time. Okay, his first episode may still be missing, but at least it's been animated. Okay, yeah, no, the animation on episode 3 is appalling. They used it to try experimenting with motion capture 3D animation, and it just looks utterly atrocious. No one is happy with this animation, and frankly it feels like a stain on the show. A great serial let down by this atrocity. Hopefully it gets sorted one day, but ugh. There almost becomes like a chess match between the Doctor and the Great Intelligence. They realise they have a spy, but is it the funny Welsh driver, or the annoying reporter, or Travis's feminist daughter?
What's a girl like you doing in a job like this?
Well, when I was a little girl, I thought I'd like to be a scientist, so I became a scientist.
As I said before, this is a dark, eerie, claustrophobic story, and has some great action, as well as being significant to the show's history, and is another of my personal favourites. Other than one episode found on the floor of a loading bay, it was completely missing, barring censor clips, making it one of, if not the most wanted episode returns. And in 2013, it happened.
9 missing episodes featuring the second Doctor, Patrick Troughton, dating back to the 1960s, have been found in Nigeria.
When I first saw it today on the big screen after 45 years, it was quite emotional.
Actually, I haven't seen that story since it went out live. 45 years ago. That was quite scary.
The self-proclaimed Indiana Jones of TV, Philip Morris, managed to find 5 missing episodes of The Enemy of the World and 4 of The Web of Fear in a broadcast station in Nigeria.
They were found at a TV station in Jos, just sitting on the shelf, which I can remember now, seeing a piece of masking tape. It said Doctor Who on it, and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
He found the complete sets there in 2011 and bought the films. However, when they arrived in London, episode 3 of The Web of Fear was missing. When he called the station to ask about it, they said they didn't know what he was talking about. In other words, it was stolen. We have photo evidence of its existence, but it's gone. It's the only missing episode where we know it's out there somewhere, but where? Morris didn't want to return them incomplete, so after he returned them to Richard Bignell for scanning and restoration, the announcement was held off for 2 years while they tried to find it. 13 years later, there's still no sign. In 2013, there were rumours about that all bar a handful of episodes had been found in Ethiopia, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, your nan's attic, everywhere. Eventually, to coincide with the 50th anniversary, the 9 episodes were announced as being recovered and uploaded straight to iPlayer. This find accounts for half of all missing episodes found since 1988. Season 5 is lucky when it comes to missing episode finds. Initially, it only had 1 episode in its existence, that being episode 3 of Enemy of the World, and when the status of the archives was published in 1982, it was 2, with the first episode of The Web of Fear. In the decade since, there have been a further 20 episodes found, taking it up to 22 surviving episodes out of 40. Other seasons haven't been so lucky, with only handfuls returned since the 80s. The journey to finding the lost episodes has been the crux of classic Doctor Who fans for over 40 years. While we're now getting animations to fill the gaps, there'll always be the hope of new episode returns. The now named Omnirumour has been running since 2013 that there are indeed more episodes in Phil Morris or anyone else's collection awaiting return, or people living in the hope that a miracle like the Daleks' master plan being found in a Mormon church will happen again.
What they were doing in the basement of a Mormon church, however, remains a mystery to this day.
But alas, we can only wait. The Tomb of the Cybermen and Enemy web discoveries are examples of prints made for foreign sales that were found on a forgotten shelf in the back of a broadcast station in some foreign country, and not returned to the BBC as they should have been in the 70s. Abominable Snowmen 2 and The Wheel in Space 3 are examples of episodes found in the hands of private collectors, often foreign prints that were sold out the back door instead of being destroyed as they should have been. There became a black market for these old films, and at the time it was considered illegal. Bob Monkhouse famously got sued for trying to save his own episodes, so many of these collectors still fear prosecution to this day, even though there is an amnesty in place now. Foreign broadcasters and private collectors are pretty much the only hope of seeing a return, even if there are some fraudsters about.
You've no idea what it felt like. If I could get hold of this Roger Barrett, I think I'd just grab hold of him by the scruff of his neck and choke him until I found out why he'd misled everybody. What kind of idiot does he take us all for?
The Ice Warriors, however, is pretty much the only example of episodes being found in a forgotten corner of the BBC archives. The next serial has no surviving episodes. From the depths of the underground, we now go to Fury from the Deep. Fun fact, this is the only serial between Mission to the Unknown and Spearhead from Space not to begin with the word "the." Again, set in the near future, this serial deals with a gas line, similar to North Sea gas, which was seen as the future at the time. However, there is something alive in the pipes, a giant living seaweed. We get introduced to the sonic screwdriver for the first time, though a whistle was used as the prop. Written by Victor Pemberton, this serial is heavily based on a radio play he wrote called The Slide. Maybe that's how it got its legendary status as a missing episode, with the way things are framed making it suitable for audio. But the sound design by Dudley Simpson is where the credit definitely lies. The deep, thuddy noise making this terrifying, eerie atmosphere throughout. Just from the sound design alone, you're hiding behind the sofa, so no wonder this is one fans have adored listening to the soundtrack and watching the telesnaps. The design, like Web of Fear, is very claustrophobic, being set in the gaswork where the seaweed could come bursting through at any moment. or you may find yourself trapped in a room being gassed. Fortunately, New Zealand censored one scene where a character is gassed from gas coming out of these two men's mouths. The imagery here is iconic and on its own sells the whole series. It is terrifying, but unfortunately it's almost all we have in terms of visuals from this serial. But fortunately it has been animated. Yeah, not very claustrophobic, is it? Similar to the Abominable Snowmen, I guess it was designed for 4 and 3 black and white, but it's just way too spacious. I'm guessing this is a limitation of the medium of animation, with characters standing in a line, but for a serial that's been creating all sorts of imagery in people's mind, this doesn't really meet expectations. Hey, one film can was found in the 80s, but with an episode of Sesame Street in it, so I guess it could be out there somewhere. The one thing the animation does do justice to is Victoria's departure at the end, with touching lighting and capturing the slowed down performances. It really is a touching scene that does the character justice.
Oh, come on, let's go. Well, where would you like to go? I couldn't kill less.
I was fond of her too, you know, Jamie.
Victoria was definitely the most childlike of the companions, played by the 19-year-old Deborah Watling, who wasn't the best of actors.
Who's that terrible woman?
She was a very unconfident character, getting herself into trouble and screaming a lot, and was a bit annoying. While her chemistry worked well with Troughton and Hines, she was kind of the third wheel to them. After 6 episodes of running from the seaweed and people getting infected and possessed by it, they discovered that Victoria's high-pitched screaming turns it away, a joke on the very screamy character who had been screaming her way through the season.
No! No! Stop! Stop! Stop!
They repel the seaweed, and after an unnecessary helicopter sequence, everyone who had been captured is revealed to still be alive.
No, he's fine. He's well.
Darling, we're all right, I promise you.
Okay, a weirdly optimistic ending for such a downbeat story. Oh yeah, another scene we don't have is of a possessed character walking into the sea. That's an eerie sounding cliffhanger. But yes, despite its being missing, Fury from the Deep is a fan favourite story, and is such a shame that we can't see it. Only these eerie, claustrophobic glances, but... With Victoria now gone, it was on to the final story of the season.
You'd better come in.
Believe it or not, this serial was originally thought of as being a Daleks vs Cyberman epic, but with Terry Nation trying to pitch the Daleks to American networks, he wouldn't give the rights. So what we get instead is a pretty mid-Cyberman story. The TARDIS is broken and the Doctor and Jamie find themselves on an abandoned spaceship with a funky robot that's moving these white pods around. Meanwhile, on a space station called The Wheel, they're worried over some drops in air pressure or whatever. After 2 episodes of filler, we discover these pods are Cyberman eggs. Yeah. The Doctor and Jamie meet a young librarian, Zoe, played by Rendy Padbury, an astrophysicist with a very computer-like mind, who seems to get annoyed at not having emotions or anything.
Oh, it isn't a theory. You can't disprove the facts. It's pure logic.
Logic, my dear Zoe, merely enables one to be wrong with authority.
The Doctor introduces himself as John Smith, another first, and it's only a matter of time before they discover a cybermat, alerting them to who the attackers are. These new gimp-suit Cybermen. Then some more filler happens as the Doctor makes some electronic force field and eventually Cybermen are blown away into space by the deflector shields. Yes, this is the effect they use. It's hilarious. After a strong series, this was a pretty forgettable serial, and for a Cyberman serial at that, they had an unbroken track record until now. I guess being written by David Whittaker rather than Pedler and Davis made the difference. But it's such a dull story that you struggle to remember what's happened, And looking up other reviews, yeah, dull and convoluted was how it was described by the Discontinuity Guide and the Radio Times in 1995 and 2009. So yeah, dull and convoluted. There's an attempt at multiculturalism with some accents and yeah, let's not think about it too much. While episode 3 was retained, episode 6 was returned by a collector in 1984. These are the only 2 episodes of the 6 to survive. But the one benefit we do get from this story is the introduction of Zoe Heriot. At the end of the story, she stows away in the TARDIS wanting to explore and not be so boring. To show her what she can expect, the Doctor projects his memories of his last encounter with the Daleks on the TV for her. This led into a rebroadcast of The Evil of the Daleks over the summer gap. An introduction from the Doctor at the beginning of episode 1 was added.
Now, as I remember, Zoe, it all started when Jamie and I discovered somebody making off with the TARDIS.
But what about those Daleks you showed me?
Now, we're coming to them, Zoe. Just let me show you the story from the beginning.
And this version of the story got novelised. Yes, there's a novelisation of a narrated version of Evil of the Daleks. I don't know why either. This was the first time an entire serial was rebroadcast, and while the summer broadcast suffered technical issues...
Oh no, it's only because of some repairs.
Then we must leave for the moment this episode of Doctor Who.
Only got 5 million viewers. It's filled the gap between seasons 5 and 6 over the summer of 1968. A summer where the whole face of science fiction was about to change forever.